How would you like to pay a 99% tax rate? That's what one group is proposing, and there are plenty of people who are behind them. Today, I'm going to share with you all the details of the people who want to come and take your wealth. Over the last couple of years, there has been no shortage of groups, no shortage of politicians who have made it very clear. If you are wealthy, if you have a high income, if you made money during the pandemic, not because you're an evil person, but because you ran a business that was online, that they shut the rest of the economy down and people wanted to go to your service. They had no choice but to buy from your service, and you made money off of that. You are an evil, disgusting person, and they want to come for as much as 99% of your wealth, or if they're in a good mood, how about 92%? Those are the proposals. I'm going to share them with you. If it's your first time here, my name is Andrew Henderson. I'm the founder of Nomad Capitalist. We're a boutique consultancy for 7- and 8-figure entrepreneurs and investors who want to avoid all this nonsense, go where they're treated best, be able to legally reduce their taxes, diversify and protect their wealth, and increase their options with things like second passports. I'm also the host of the biggest and best offshore conference called Nomad Capitalist Live. So even if you don't have 7 or 8 figures, you can come and learn how to be prepared in advance. Everyone's welcome. So here's the article from Oxfam. This is about Oxfam. It's an article from a newspaper, TFN, in Scotland. Oxfam calls for a one-off tax as the super rich see their wealth soar during the pandemic. This is the people who are hanging around Davos and who are saying you shouldn't be allowed to have money because yet the poorest are still getting poorer. Everything's a zero-sum game for these people. Some of our clients over the last couple of years built stock trading empires, built crypto, obviously that's come down recently, built businesses, expanded their businesses during the pandemic because they said, hey, I had some time, I was sitting around at home, I didn't have to commute anymore, I figured out how to sell ebooks on the side, or I figured out how to sell romance novels, or I became a stock trader or options trader. And some of these folks have turned that into millions of dollars a year. They're not greedy profiteers. They took advantage of an opportunity, they maximized the time they had available, and they made some extra money. But to the people in Oxfam, the people who are the Davos, all these different people, the poorest are getting poorer means that you should pay more. Fortunes, here's the article, this is from TFN in Scotland. Fortunes of the wealthiest in the world have more than doubled during the coronavirus pandemic, according to Oxfam. This is a group, by the way, if you haven't heard of Oxfam. They are a group that basically goes around, their entire agenda is the greedy rich, so you know what to expect from them. The super rich have swelled their coffers during the pandemic thanks to ample financial stimulus that pumped up stocks, the anti-poverty organization said. And yet it also pumped up again, as we've seen in our business, people who created businesses and they had extra time and people wanted to buy stuff online, or they were downloading more apps, or they were doing whatever, and they made some money. You never hear about them, by the way, the people who start the small business, and then at some point, once they cross some, I don't know where it is, line, and they start making $5 million a year from their app, somehow they too become the greedy rich. When they were making 43 grand a year, they were a hard-working entrepreneur who politicians wanted to point to as why their country is great, that could still be created. Except, we also have people from Egypt and Morocco and Brazil and Colombia and Thailand. People are doing this there too, by the way. So you can't really say it's the great US, the great Canada, the great Australia, but there's some point when you cross over and then you become the greedy rich. You're no longer the great hardworking entrepreneur anymore. Oxfam has called for governments to impose, wait for this, a one-time 99% tax on billionaires, and by another metric, what they call uber millionaires, and use the money to fund production of vaccines for the poor, part of an effort to combat global inequality widened by the coronavirus pandemic. I wonder how much of that money will actually go to the vaccines for the poor with these highly corrupt organizations. Not saying that Oxfam is, but everyone else who gets their dirty little mitts on the money, probably a lot of them are highly corrupt. It comes as poor countries suffered more than their share from COVID because of unequal access to vaccines, which have mostly gone to rich nations. Just over 7% of people in low-income countries have received a vaccine dose compared to more than 75% in high-income countries. Notice, by the way, whenever you think about vaccines, and I know you don't have any thoughts on vaccines, but whenever you think about that, there's always the cause célèbre. There's always the thing that's in focus. 2 years from now, when vaccines are no longer really an issue, they're no longer the news, they'll have some other reason why you should pay 99%. Let's be very clear. Oxfam, a group that has the ear of many politicians around the world, a group that gives the talking points to many of the left-leaning politicians who have gained more credibility in countries like Canada, like Australia in the recent election, other countries around the world. They are in step with people like Bernie Sanders in the United States. They want you to pay 99%. That's just their thing. They'll find some cute little reason. Ever read How to Win Friends and Influence People? How to cut in line in the copy machine? I think it was the book where you say, hey, do you mind if I cut in line? I need to make copies. Any reason you give, you're like 50% more likely that, please go ahead and cut in line. They're looking, so what Oxfam does, any reason they can come up with for you to give 99% that sounds good to the general population, they're all for it. Don't worry, they'll find another reason in 2 years. Right now it's vaccines. Oxfam has created its report ahead of discussions at the World Economic Forum's online gathering of political and business leaders. Oxfam International Director Gabriela Bucher said, when governments did the rescue packages and pumped trillions of dollars into the economies and to financial markets in order to support the economy for all, what happened is a lot of it went into the pockets of billionaires. When do we get to blame the politicians, by the way, for being so corrupt? If you want to shovel trillions of dollars my way, I'm not going to stand in your way. Maybe we should hold the people that you voted for. By the way, it's not the evil 1%, because by definition, the 1% is only 1%. So what are the other 99% voting for? They're voting for the corrupt politicians. When do we hold them accountable for funneling trillions of dollars into the economy? By the way, I don't think many of our clients benefited from this. I don't think they were, if they're stock traders, perhaps they did benefit from this, and now they're getting some of those gains back. But people who are just entrepreneurs, who were just, starting businesses from zero and building them up and selling stuff online, they benefited from trillions of dollars pumped into the economy. They were saying, thank goodness I'm at the trough. I'm eating at the trough with Elon Musk that, Gabriela Bucher talks about. It went into the pockets of billionaires. How about this, Gabrielle? How about you get some better politicians? A one-off 99% tax could earn more than $800 billion and be used to fund a vaccination expense. Who cares what it's, as I said, who cares what it funds? They'll find something for it to fund. We would also be able to compensate for the damage of climate change. So now they got more things. Listen, you could be for vaccines, you can be all for fighting climate change, that's great. I never understood by climate change. Listen, I minimize plastic use. I don't take the plastic bags. I try and limit, myself. I try and, do the. I never understood why I was supposed to pay a lot more. Like, why do I need to pay more in tax so that you can fight climate change? While still leaving the 10 richest billionaires richer than they were at the start of the pandemic. Everything for these people is a zero-sum game. Everything for the people who, again, are influencing the left-leaning politicians in your Western country, everything for them is, then they're talking about gender-based violence. They got everything in here. They just have a lot of things that are their buzzwords, that are the things that they talk about. And again, no doubt there's some seriousness to these causes, but they just throw it all in the pot, and it's a zero-sum game because all they care about is, you're still going to have as much money as you did 2 years ago. That's why they don't have any money. That's why they've accomplished nothing in their lives, because they don't understand what the goal is. They don't understand the velocity of money. Oh, you just have what you have 2 years ago. Why don't we just take you back to 2 years ago in terms of social progress and see what you like? Of course they don't want that. So they don't like going back 2 years in time because they think that, as long as you have money, you're taking it from someone else. They don't realize that things grow over time, that the pie gets bigger. That doesn't matter. Now, it's if that weren't enough, and she said, who's this? Danny, the chief executive in the UK, what's happening is off the scale. Something is deeply flawed with our economic system. When do we get to blame the politicians, by the way? When is it their fault? Now, if 99% seems unpalatable, this is from The Nation. The Nation says, they're going to go easy on you, The Nation. We need a 92% tax on pandemic profiteers. Let's tax billionaires and uber millionaires back to where they stood when COVID hit. So everything is zero-sum game. Give the money back. The last 2 years doesn't count. Like, it's all your fault. Never blame the politicians. This is from John Nichols in The Nation. Even before the COVID pandemic supercharged economic inequality, Bernie Sanders announced as a 2020 presidential candidate that billionaires should not exist because he also thinks that the world is a zero-sum game. Bernie's out printing a lot of money, and people are wealthier in fiat terms. Are they really wealthier? Bernie is the one creating the billionaires with his bad economic policies and all of his friends. But that was a perfectly reasonable argument from a contender to lead a country that in the 1950s maintained a top marginal tax rate of 92%. I like how these guys, and again, you could say you agree with him on this, they don't want to go back to the 1950s for anything else. But they want to go back to 92% tax rates, right? Bernie Sanders will say, we're the only country that doesn't have free health care. You're also the only country, Bernie Sanders, that taxes people who live outside of its borders and don't get the free health care or don't get any services. Now, I think in Bernie Sanders' credit, there were some murmurs that he wanted to end citizenship-based taxation. And you know what? If he would have come out and said that, when I was a U.S. citizen, I would have voted for him on that issue alone, because it's an issue of fairness. And maybe there is some fairness to Bernie Sanders if that rumor is true. But, everyone wants to talk about, the 1950s and we're the only nation. Of course, when it's only convenient for them. You think people are such crusaders for truth and for virtue. It's hardly the case. But as with so many of Senator's proposals, the article continues, the notion of taxing the rich down to size. Down to size. That's what it's all about. John Nichols is a bitter, nasty man who's accomplished nothing other than writing for the nation. And he wants to bring other people down to size. He wants them to come down to his level. He wants them to come down so he can not feel so small. And everybody else out there who chose not. I mean, think about it. Are you any less intelligent than Jeff Bezos? Why aren't we all Jeff Bezos? Maybe there's something that he's doing differently. Oh, you got a loan of $1,000. No. Maybe there's something that he does differently. I'm not a big fan of Jeff Bezos, but there must be something he does differently. There must be something these people are doing differently. There's something that I do differently from other people. There's something that you do differently from people who don't have your level of success. And the very issue of these folks is so telling. They need to bring you down to size so they can feel comfortable because you're too big for your britches. You need to be brought down to the size of the average person who didn't take the risks, who didn't work the extra hours or figure out the hack or do whatever it took. You need to be brought down to size. And for the pundit class that polices the political discourse to ensure that things don't get too interesting. So let me offer a modest proposal, says John Nichols. Let's tax billionaires and uber millionaires back to where they stood in the pandemic. Same thing as Oxfam. Back to March 2020 levels with authorization from Congress. The IRS auditors can calculate the excess profits of the billionaire class and then collect the cash in the spirit of shared sacrifice. This is also my favorite. When people just go on Bernie Sanders' Twitter, and you'll see people, I paid my share. Where's your share, Elon? Yeah, we got it. You paid $1,152. Where's your $10 billion? You that $1,152? Gone. It's gone. $1,152. Gone. 2 years ago, working class Americans masked up and marched into hospital wards and meatpacking plants to do what they understood was essential work. Their level of sacrifice was immense. They went to their jobs. Thousands of nurses, hundreds of transit workers, and an untold number of employees in factories and warehouses died. Millions got sick, lost jobs, and faced the threat of eviction and hunger. As if, you're right, Elon Musk is sitting around laughing at all of them. As if this was his plot all along, for everyone else to be miserable. But that's how they see it, because they really see it as a zero-sum game. And they are pushing these policies into your Western country that it really is you against them. You want grandma pushed off the edge. You want people dying in their factories and their meatpacking plants. You want that so you can get richer. They don't understand how business people work. They don't understand how entrepreneurship works. They don't understand how people like Elon Musk or you or I tick. It's not about this accumulation of wealth. It's about building something. They would never understand that because they've built nothing. They built articles in the nation, and they want to take your money as a result. And they have the ear of a lot of politicians in your country. That's where these policies, shared sacrifice, it's going to become a lot more common. You think the idea of, you've heard us talk about for the last year and a half, the idea of windfall profit taxes. You make too much money. Again, the politicians will put you up on stage when you're building a business that creates some jobs, it's local community, but when you start making too much money, how much they'll determine. People who probably never actually held a real job in their life, they got law degrees, they went to the state Congress, then they went to U.S. Congress, whatever. They've been politicians their entire life. They know nothing, and they'll determine how much money is too much based on who? Some person at the nation tells them? Some buffoon at Oxfam tells them? That's who the politicians are listening to because they say it's different for the rich. That's what John Nichols says. America's billionaires have grown $2.1 trillion richer during the pandemic. Who cares? Why don't you become richer, John Nichols? Oh, that's right, you can't. The $5 trillion in wealth that was locked up by those 745 billionaires. By the way, make no mistake, they care about much more than the billionaires. That's just a gut talking point. You saw in the U.S., the billionaire tax was $100 million and up. And by the way, you didn't have anything to do with all this money that was handed out, the largesse, the printing press that was turned on during the pandemic. That wasn't your fault. You ran a business, and yet what's happened to business valuations? They're going a lot higher. Anyone who has a relatively successful business, maybe some cash in the bank, maybe a house, maybe some other kind of investments, you could get to $100 million. No doubt, that's a lot of money. But it wouldn't be nearly as hard as you think it would be to get to the $100 million level and therefore be subject to a billionaire's tax. They don't care about just the billionaires. That's just the talking point. It's been proven by the actual legislation proposed. But 745 billionaires is 2/3 more than the $3 trillion in wealth held by the bottom 50% of U.S. households. Now, we could go into that, but we'll save that for another day. The great good fortune of these billionaires of the past 19 months is, again, as if it is to everyone else's detriment. Everyone else's detriment would have occurred whether they got richer or not, because the government screwed up. Is even starker, though, he says, when contrasted with the devastating impact of the coronavirus on working people. Almost 89 million Americans have lost jobs. Not really their fault in most cases. Over 44.9 million have been sickened by the virus. Okay, we get it. Lots of emotional talking points so they can take 92 to 99% of your wealth. And then it comes, unless, of course, we impose a little pandemic-era shared sacrifice on those who sacrifice nothing at all. What it comes down to is they don't like the fact that you're living a good life. Your happiness, by the way, I'm 37 years old, been in business and building a business, different businesses for almost 2 decades now. There's finally a point in my life, and maybe some of you know this, or if you've experienced this yourself, where it's like, I finally feel like I can relax a little bit. I can finally breathe a sigh of relief, let go a little bit. Almost 2 decades. For some of you, it's taken longer. For some of you, it's taken not as long. But the idea that you've sacrificed nothing at all after 2 decades of building up and never being able to turn the off switch. And what are these people complaining about? The people who go to work at Jeff Bezos' operation don't get to flip the off switch enough. And that they want to say Jeff Bezos sacrificed nothing at all because he built an operation that changed the way that you consume products. And then we get to the best part. In my new book, at the end of the day, John Nichols wants to sell you a book because he's just as much of a capitalist as you are, but he's never going to make as much money as you will. So he's bitter. He wants to bring you down to size. So he's going to make sure he uses his platform with the nation. People at Oxfam want to make sure they use their platform at Oxfam to make sure that they whisper in the ear of everybody at the World Economic Forum, to whisper in the ear of all the politicians in your country. By the way, I'm not hopping on board with some of the most extreme stuff. People talk about these things, but you can't deny that these people are having an impact on a lot of left-wing politicians who are now more in power in Australia, who are now cemented in power in Canada, who are currently running the United States and many other Western countries. It's happening in Germany. A lot of these countries are moving in the wrong direction. New Zealand as well. If you live in these countries, these proposals are going to start to see the light of day. How many countries talked about wealth taxes? The more of these things enter the public discourse, eventually some of this stuff starts to come home because people start to accept it. And you as the 1% won't have any reason to retaliate. It will be more than the 1% eventually, don't worry. So even if you're in the 5, 10, or 20%, eventually this will come to bite you in some way. These people are angry that you've done something. If I were you, I wouldn't want to be around them. I would go to a place where people and the politicians don't listen to them because they have a better way to run their country that doesn't rely on dividing people.